Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger, and up next, Death Sentence, Episode 2. Do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's go. So, just to refresh the topic and grab a few highlights from Episode 1, the first thing I want to say is the true death sentence is the actual label dual threat quarterback. That is the death sentence. The reason why we believe that is because I believe that it triggers a series of events in the quarterback's career. And one of the first things is how that quarterback is handled. Typically, when a quarterback is labeled a dual threat quarterback, he's placed in a particular style of offense with a particular OC. And that style of offense is limited to his development as a passer. So these quarterbacks are getting the label of being an inaccurate passer, and the numbers do bear that out in some aspects. But the story that's not told is why these quarterbacks may be, preface that statement, may be inaccurate. I believe that their offseason workouts where they're working on technique and throwing and reading defenses and things like that. I don't think those skill sets are translating into in-season performances because what they're working on in the offseason doesn't correlate to the offense they're actually running. So I believe that the label is the death sentence. It starts a series of events in that quarterback's career and puts a cap on what they're going to accomplish during that career. And the handling creates a limiting offense that they're going to be placed in. The second factor that we're going to bring up in episode 2 is going to be the franchise approach. I think each dual threat quarterback that we mentioned, Vic, Cam, and Lamar, they're all placed in franchises or drafted by franchises who approach them in a very similar way. When we go back and we think about Michael Vick's career, that organization had a problem with retaining talent and or acquiring talent. And I don't know whether they just didn't want to retain the talent or they just didn't want to use some capital to go out and get a top-notch wide receiver. But if you remember, Michael Vick's favorite target in his first years in Atlanta was Algie Crumpler, who was a tight end. You follow what I'm saying? And I think his best receiver was Terrence Mathis. Now, Terrence Mathis was a solid receiver, but he was never a number one. And if nothing else, these quarterbacks who supposedly have a limiting passing ability need a number one to make passing easier. When we go from Vic and we go to Cam Newton, we have to look at how the organization retained or acquired talent during his time. Okay. One of the first things we'll know is after Cam Newton had his first season where he threw for over 4,000 yards. If you don't remember, Cam Newton lost his left tackle. The Carolina Panthers never drafted a left tackle in the first round to replace Jordan Gross after his retirement. And what does a quarterback need more than anything outside of a wide receiver? They need a left tackle to protect their blind side. Okay, let's travel on in the career of Cam Newton. After spending 3 years with Steve Smith being his number one wide receiver, I know Greg Olsen was probably his favorite target, but Steve Smith was his number one wide receiver, where Steve Smith went for a couple of 1,000-yard seasons and finished his last season in 2013 with the Carolina Panthers with over 900 yards. They released him. Now, why would you release your franchise quarterback's best receiver and did not go and acquire another talent to replace him? I understand that these teams are drafting wide receivers, but a drafted wide receiver is a wide receiver who has to be proven. But when you have a franchise guy, and even if you don't believe he's a franchise guy, when you're using him like he's a franchise guy, that guy needs a go-to wide receiver, somebody who is proven, not somebody who is trying to prove himself in this league. You understand? You see, so they got rid of his number one target and never replaced him. And then the guys they drafted never proved themselves. See, when Cam Newton hit his high height in 2015 when he won the MVP and went to the Super Bowl, he drug that offense to the championship game with Jericho Cartry and Philly Brown as his 1 and 2 receivers. You see, now that's not putting the whole team on your back and dragging specifically the offense into the Super Bowl. I don't know what is. But see, if we go from Cam and we go to Lamar Jackson, guess what we're going to find out? We're going to find out that the proceedings of Lamar Jackson's career speak very similar to Cam Newton's career. Okay. When Lamar Jackson came into the league, John Brown was probably their best wide receiver. At least he was the best deep threat. What did the Baltimore Ravens do in 2019? They let John Brown, they let him go and join the Buffalo Bills. Okay. Just like Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson won the MVP with less than above average talent. Seth Roberts and Willie Snead were his 1 and 2 receivers. Marquise Brown wasn't even listed as a starter on that roster. Right? They drafted Marquise Brown in that year. Okay. So then 2020, he won his first playoff game. Right? 2021, they did okay, but Lamar got hurt. And in 2022, Lamar got hurt. But what did they do in that 2022 draft? They traded away his number 1 receiver after 3 years. The same way Carolina got rid of Steve Smith after 3 years, the Baltimore Ravens moved on off of Marquise Brown after 3 years and did not replace him. Understand, they already had Rashad Bateman, but Rashad Bateman was an unproven commodity at that time. And in some aspects, he's still unproven because remember, Rashad Bateman did not finish his first season. I'm not questioning that these teams are drafting wide receivers. I'm not questioning that they're not spending draft capital trying to find a guy. Listen to the statement, trying to find a guy, but taking some of that draft capital and going out and acquiring a guy who is proven is something different. And it's something that's going to produce and would have produced different results for these quarterbacks. You see, the second piece is the organizations or the franchises' unwillingness to change. These organizations, both Atlanta and Carolina, they were slow to make changes to coaching staffs and to schema in order to improve the outcomes of these quarterbacks' careers. When we jump to the Baltimore Ravens and take a look at how the Baltimore Ravens have handled Lamar Jackson's career, it's very, very clear they've been slow to change. We understand that Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson did some good things in 2019 and 2020. Right? They did some great things, broke all kind of records. But let's really be clear on why they broke the records. They broke all those running records. Why? On Lamar Jackson's ability to run. If you remove Lamar Jackson's ability to run, Baltimore does not have the number 1 rushing offense. See, Lamar Jackson should not have been the leading rusher for the Baltimore Ravens. But when you're in that style of offense, he has to carry the running load or had to carry the running load, and he had to carry all the passing load because he's the quarterback. But when you look at what they actually put around him, they put multiple guys who had to prove themselves. I believe it's 6 or 7 draft picks that they used to put talent on the team, but they never went out and got a guy. I understand that guys in free agency made a decision to go play elsewhere. I understand that. But that does not stop the Baltimore Ravens from taking draft capital and acquiring somebody. There was multiple above average and good wide receivers who moved positions, moved teams during the Lamar Jackson era. There was a lot of good talent that moved teams in the Cam Newton era in Carolina. But did they go out and acquire any? No, because these teams have been slow to change. They should have changed. Ron Rivera should have been replaced the season before they went to the Super Bowl. And if I'm honest, John Harbaugh and Greg Roman probably should have been replaced after the 2020 season. They should have. Because you would have recognized, the organization should have recognized that, you know what, this guy has an ability to do more with less. If I put some coaches in place that can get more out of him, and if I, as the GM, if I go out and acquire talent to put around him, we can make something special happen. And up until this point, the Ravens hadn't done it, and in Cam Newton's career, the Carolina Panthers did not do it. Which leads me to the third factor in episode 2 that creates the death sentence scenario, and that is these quarterbacks are not coached. Now I know you may say, now Belanger, I can get down with they didn't retain or acquire talent, and I can get down with maybe the limited offense, but I can't get down with these quarterbacks were not coached. You see, I even had a couple of people tell me that Cam was not a good passer. I had some people tell me that Vic was not a good passer. His numbers, both their numbers, excuse me, bear that out. I agree. And in some aspects, Lamar Jackson's numbers probably could be better. We definitely saw Lamar miss some throws and things like that, but I explained why I believe that happens in video number 1. But I don't believe these guys are being coached. Now, let me prove this. Let me prove this. For those people who said coaching had nothing to do with it, let me prove it. Let's take a little journey back and take a look at Michael Vick's numbers. Now, for his whole career, he's a 56% completion passer, meaning he completed 56% of all his passes. Now, that's not great. But look at Michael Vick's numbers when he came back into the league and hooked up with Andy Reid in 2010. Michael Vick had his overall best passing season with 62% completion. Michael Vick had, I think it's 3,300 yards. Now, hold it. What's the difference between his time before in Atlanta and his time now? The coach is the difference. You see, he got with a coach who coached him. He got with an offensive scheme that unlocked and stopped limiting his ability as a passer. You see, that's a huge jump from some of Michael Vick's numbers in his Atlanta days. 62%, which is way better than 50 and 55 and 52 and those kind of percentages. That's a exponential leap in passing. The passing yards, that's a big jump. Why? Because he was coached differently. When he got with Andy Reid, I believe that was the first time that Michael Vick had been coached. But let's not stop there. If you don't think that coaching change and that connection makes a difference, let's jump to Cam Newton. For Cam Newton's career, he's about a 60% passer. I showed you that in video 1. All right. Even Cam Newton's MVP year, he was only at 59%. But look at what happened in 2017. Excuse me, 2018, when Cam Newton was connected with Norv Turner as the new OC. See, because a new OC is going to bring a new quarterbacks coach. Those two together are going to put an offense in that unlocks a part of Cam's game. Cam is a 60% career passer, but when he hooked up with Norv Turner, his completion percent shot up to 67%. You telling me the coaching doesn't make a difference? Here we have two scenarios where these guys have a markedly better improvement when they get with new OCs and new coaching. You follow what I'm saying? So my hope is that Lamar Jackson has the same type of leap. Now, I don't think he'll leap as much as these guys will, But if Lamar can go from a 64% passer, which is what he would be on average if you remove that first year when he was a rookie, you see what I'm saying? Lamar Jackson could be in that 68 to 69 percentile or completion percentage. See, coaching does make a difference. See, because if you have a head coach and an OC and a quarterback's coach who only see you skilled and gifted in one kind of way, and they use that running ability to mask or hide your inability as a passer, that's all you'll do is you'll run the ball and be a marginal passer. That's what happened in Vic's career. That's what happened in Cam's career, and a lot of that happened in Lamar Jackson's career. But when they took the harness off these guys, when they took the cap off these guys and put them in an offense that's more of a pro style, they still ran read option and stuff like that. But that wasn't the dominant play call. That wasn't the dominant scheme. And we saw what Vic and Cam both did. And I believe Lamar Jackson has an ability to do the same thing this year. You see, to close up this video, when these quarterbacks are labeled a dual threat, that's really saying that they're a running quarterback. That's really that really speaks to how they're going to be used. They're going to be used as a runner. And when a quarterback is used as one of the top runners on that team, he doesn't have an opportunity to get better as a passer. And that's what happened to Vic until he got with Andy Reid. And you could see that, hey, this dude can throw the ball some. And that's what happened to Cam until he got with Norv Turner. And you could see, hold on, this dude can throw the ball some. And then the unfortunate part about Cam, he got hurt. And, didn't ever fully recover. In fact, if you look at Cam's numbers from that 2018 season, he missed 2 games that year. But he still threw for over 3,300 yards. That means if he plays those other 2 games, he touches 4,000 yards possibly with that new OC. You see, so coaching does make a difference. And I think that it's evident that these guys were not coached before they had a real coaching change and somebody unlocked the other part of their game. So my hope is I've already seen Lamar be able to do things with the ball from in the passing game. And that was with a lack of weapons or an injured wide receiving corps. So hopefully that the improvement in wide receiving talent and the new OC will make a significant difference in the outcomes Lamar Jackson has been seeing, and we can change this trajectory. So listen, I'm your guy Boulanger. Stay up for episode 3, which will be usage. Our discussion will be how these quarterbacks are used, and we'll introduce these other guys into this conversation. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.